The Consumer Product Safety Commission established 175 micrograms of lead as a dose that, if it's found in a toy or a trinket, would trigger acute health concerns, fines, and product recalls. So that's the standard that society sets. And I'm going to make a controversial assertion here that if 175 micrograms of lead in any of these products that are not designed for human consumption, that if we find that same dose of lead in a water sample, which is designed for human consumption, we should be concerned about it and take action. A dose of 175 micrograms lead is unacceptable. Well, based on Freedom of Information Act requests of various schools around the country, what you'll find is that many of these school systems have a high percentage of their schools where at least one water sample tested above this acute health threshold. In Washington, D.C., 2007, we forced release the data showed 10% of the schools in Washington, D.C. From a single glass of water would deliver a dose exceeding 175 micrograms lead. In some of these schools, more than 80% of the taps exceeded EPA standards of 20 parts per billion. And this information was not shared with students, parents, or teachers for at least 2 years. If you look elsewhere in the country, Seattle, 4.5% of schools. Blacksburg, of course, we only had 5 schools, so it was 1 out of 5 that had this high level of lead. And if you look at these what levels we're talking about, in some cases, they're actually very, very shocking. This is a log scale, the highest sample of lead that we measured in each of these schools based on the forced release of data from the Freedom of Information Act request. Many of these samples were in the hazardous waste range for lead and water. And to put this dose into context, this is a picture of what the worst case sample looked like. A 250 mil lead in water sample measured 20,000 parts per billion from a kindergarten room in Washington, D.C. To get that same dose from lead paint, you'd have to eat about 14 dime-sized lead paint chips with 1% lead content. This is a dose from a single glass of water that's high enough to put a kid into the emergency room.